Hello and welcome to the Justice Factor. The lives of mine workers are cheaper than chewing gum. These are the words of Andile Yawa, father of one of the 34 mine workers killed on the 16th of August 2012 in what is now known as the Marikana massacre. Today we speak to Amnesty International's Deputy Director here in South Africa, Noel Kututwa, and COSATU President Duma Dlamini about how to prevent another Marikana. After that discussion, we'll give you a winner and loser of the week. But first, let's take a look at some of the top stories of this week. My guests are City Press Editor-at-Large, Mondli Makhanya, and Mail and Guardian Associate Editor, Phillip. Guys, welcome to the show. Phillip, you were laughing earlier on, but this is a serious question. Do the spy tapes exist?
Do the spy tapes exist? We've been trying to get our hands on the spy tapes for about 100 years, it seems like. Now finally we had the President's Council stand up before the Supreme Court of Appeal and say, well, no, we don't actually have a reason why we shouldn't give the spy tapes to the Democratic Alliance, and hopefully then shortly after to you and I, so we can finally listen to them. I don't know anymore. Do they exist? I had an opinion about that about 12 years ago. But so much has happened since. It seems like a mirage.
These are the tapes that allegedly made got President Zuma. These alleged tapes, these alleged tapes, these non-existent, existent tapes are the ones that were listened to by the NPA and got President Zuma off the hook. Does this mean if we shown these tapes and they are found to have been tampered with or in some way or other actually should not have been used to get him off the hook, will charges be reinstated, Mondli Makhanya?
Well, President Jacob Zuma has fought a long and hard battle to stay out of the courtroom. And it's not just about him not being convicted. It's not to have his trial, not to have his day in court. And these alleged spy tapes, which actually I think they do exist. There is a recording that exists, but whether it says anything fundamental, it's another story altogether. But I think now, and it's been a long battle that he's fought with our money, taxpayers' money, because it's his right to fight to stay out of court. He's a citizen.
He was the Deputy President of South Africa and all that.
But I'm saying an ordinary citizen would not be able to hire kind of like the $1 million senior counsel and have such legal representation as he has done and over all these years. But be that as it may, I think we have now come to the end of the road. We are nearing the end of the road insofar as that is concerned. And I think we will know, I think within the next 6 to 8 months, whether the president will stand trial or not. And I'm not a legal man, but if I were a betting man, I would say that that the ultimate ruling will be that he will have to stand trial. But I think there is another ace up the sleeve. The strategists will make sure that he does not, that he prolongs staying out of court as long as possible.
Phillip, I say to you that President Zuma is toast, that these tapes are going to be heard by the nation, by the DA, and it's going to be, there was no basis to get rid of these charges. So they should be reinstated.
In your lifetime, maybe not in his. Keep in mind that the president has maybe, another 30 good years left in him. He just needs to stay out of court for 30 odd years. Given how long his Stalingrad strategy has drawn up, keep in mind, we're not talking about charges yet. We're talking about the tapes. Once the tapes are there, then you can bring the challenges and say charges should be reinstated. At which point Michael Hulley, the legal advisor to the president, will resurrect an argument he made in 2009, which was to say you cannot have a sitting president in court on a criminal matter. It cannot be done. And he gave a legal theory as to why that would happen. That theory then goes to the High Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, the Constitutional Court, back to the High Court, back to the Supreme Court of Appeal. He'll never be in the dock.
But there's another problem here, Mr. Makhanya. It's the NPA. The NPA is in turmoil, is in tatters almost. It's almost as bad as when Mukotedi Mpsha plagiarized that judgment that said, or that press release that said that President Zuma should walk.
Yes, before I answer that, just to add to Philip's answer, is that it also depends on what kind of appetite the ANC has for him to defend him at this point up until the end of his term as ANC president and as president of the Republic. And he is in lame duck state right now, and he is still very powerful, but a lot of how long he can drag out the strategy will be very much dependent on that. But I think in this instance, as you say, the NPA has been severely damaged by this whole saga. I think you can trace back a lot of the crises that we see in the NPA now back to the battle to keep Jacob Zuma out of court. And I mean, like the firing of Pikoli was very much a factor in that. And Pikoli then gave way to Mshe, who was going to be pliable. And then all the crises that have happened since then, and where we end up today with an NPA that is basically falling apart, I think you can trace it back to that strategy of making sure that that the man becomes president of the republic and never ever has to face
we try to vary the topics that we talk about on this show, but unfortunately the big stories are the spy tapes. It's Nkandla. Today there's Bruce Kolwane, who's been reappointed to go to who's been appointed to go and be ambassador to the Netherlands, and I'd like to talk a bit about those. Nkandla. Now President Zuma responds. In his 20-page response, he says the Minister of Police is going to have to determine whether I have to pay and how much I have to pay. Isn't this a big problem for Mr. Nathi Nhleko, the new police minister?
I wouldn't want his job for all the money in the world. Can you imagine that? The minister, what the president didn't say is the minister who serves at my sole pleasure will now have to determine how much money I owe on this house that I've told the nation again and again and again I paid for myself entirely out of my pocket. What do you do when your boss puts you in that kind of position? I mean, I guess you can resign and try and hide, but that's not going to come across well. The Minister of Police is screwed on this. Perhaps not as screwed as the nation was with Nkandla overall, but that's a very unhappy position to be in.
Mr. Makhanya, surely Mr. Nhleko has a chance to say, I have a job to do and I'm going to do it and become a Thuli Madonsela.
If that was the case, you would have seen a very different outcome from the ministerial cluster, from the security cluster in cabinet, who had all the information in front of them and basically came out with a whitewash report. I mean, like as Phillip says, these people serve at the pleasure of the president. And clearly it's backpassing. The other development that happened last week was that the chief architect, whose name we shall not mention on this show.
Mr. Makhanya is his name. Yes, Mr. Makhanya.
That he is now kind of like, he's being asked to pay 155 million rand because he was the primary contractor, and other people and then if he doesn't want to pay the 105 million rand, he has to go and get the other contractors to help pay. And clearly here it's to say, you and you are responsible for this mess. They're not calling it a mess yet, but except for the primary benefactor of this assaulting and the person by the name of Jacob Zuma.
Phillip Duvet, Bruce Kolwane is the gentleman who was in charge when the Guptas landed a plane full of wedding guests at a national key point at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Now, the newspapers break a story yesterday that Mr. Kolwane is on his way to be our ambassador in the Netherlands. Now, he's amply qualified to be an ambassador, but this is someone who was clearly shown to have broken all kinds of laws to allow the Guptas to land. And the Guptas are friends with President Zuma. Is this a trend, as Mr. Makhanya suggests, that other people take the fall and Mr. Zuma just keeps on going?
Well, that was the question we were all asking at the time of Guptagate. Who will take the fall and what will be the payback? And it seemed cynical right then. And now you look at Bruce Kolwane, who was demoted for the breaches that he was responsible for, sat quietly in the corner for how long? A couple of months, and is now deployed to the Netherlands. Now, for once, as you say, apparently he is a hell of a diplomat. Apparently he is quite qualified, and he will hopefully serve South Africa well in that position. But you've got to connect those dots, and you've got to be the contractors who worked on Nkandla looking at this and going, let's just play our part. The president will make it right for us.
Phillip Duvet, Mondli Makhanya, thanks so much for your time. After the break, we asked Duma Dlamini and Noel Kututwa if we are heading for another Marikana massacre.
News that moves. ENCA.com.